Welcome, everyone, to the Archaeology of Connecticut. I'm Glenda Rose, President of Friends of the Office of State Archaeology, here with State Archaeologist Sarah Sportman and today's guest, who Sarah will introduce shortly. The focus of today's program is the Wood Library Museum located in South Windsor. The Wood Library contains one of the finest archaeological collections in the state. The area is rich in history from both Indigenous people and European settlers. I'm especially interested because my ancestors came to the area in 1749 and farmed tobacco into the early 20th century. My dad also roamed South Windsor and Manchester as a young boy and had a small collection of stone tools that I inherited and that sparked my interest in archaeology. The wood's a real gem, and I encourage everyone to take a trip there. You will not be disappointed. So now here's Sarah to introduce our guests, who will tell you more.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to tonight's show. We're joined by two special guests, Carolyn, Venne, and Elizabeth Glaviano from the Wood Memorial Library and Museum. And tonight we're going to talk about the wood. We're going to talk about the archaeological collections that Glenda mentioned, and we're going to spend a lot of time talking about its innovative collaborative living history exhibit, Nowashe Village. So we're really excited to have you on the show. I'm going to start by asking Carolyn to introduce herself and tell us a little bit about her background and how she got involved with the Wood Memorial Library.
Hi. Well, thanks for having us. I'm the executive director of the Friends of Wood in Nowashe Village, and I'm in my 7th year as director. I'm a transplant to Connecticut, having grown up in the Hudson Valley. But I was meant to be in museums. My background previously was more in corporate strategy and at another nonprofit. So we have a lot of fun.
And I'm Liz Glaviano. I work as the education director at Wood. And one of my main projects that I work on is the educational programming and the operations for Nowashe Village.
Great, thanks. We're so glad to have both of you here tonight. So I want to spend a lot of time talking about the village, as I said a second ago. But before we do that, can we talk a little bit about the collections? Because the wood is so much more than just a library. You have archaeological collections and other collections as well, right? Archives and art and all kinds of interesting things. So would you tell us a little bit about the collections that you hold?
Sure. Carolyn, do you want me to cover the archaeological stuff? And then,
Sure.
Okay. So we're really lucky that the Friends of Wood Memorial we received from an archaeologist who was named Barney Daly. He was a local avocational archaeologist who basically donated all of his findings to the Friends of Wood Memorial. And so we have thousands of artifacts spanning from the archaic to the woodland. And these artifacts are really important because what they do is they allow us to really educate the public about the Indigenous people who lived in South Windsor for thousands of years. Not many people know that South Windsor has such a rich Indigenous history. And so these artifacts are hugely important with us transmitting that knowledge. And besides Barney, we also have collections that have been donated to us and are still donated to us by various people. 2 years ago, every year now we have an artifact identification day. And a couple of years ago, there was a gentleman named Ralph Stone, and he approached me and he said, I have a few artifacts and I'd like to have them checked out. So I said, okay, we'll walk over. And we saw, I think Dr. Nick Bellantoni was there that day. And it turns out that he had these points just in his garage for the last 40 years or so. And the points were found by his father in East Hartford at a place called the Goodwin Brook or Goodwin Rivulet, somewhere his father was in construction, he said. And he said, before I pass away and someone ends up throwing these out, I'd like to donate them to you. And so come to find out, he's donating us 3 bifurcated points that are about 8,000 years old. And so that's another way how we get donations. So every day is really like a holiday going to work because you never know who's going to bring something in or who's found something or research that comes up, etc. So we have multiple people and families that donate collections.
So you have collections. Oh, sorry, Carolyn, go ahead.
Well, what's neat too is that we also, as you said, we have a historic archive that was started in 1990. But part of what is in that historical archive are some of Barney Daly's papers. There's also a vast collection of archaeological texts for research purposes. So our information that we have available for researchers or just for casual historians, and then of course staff as well, we prepare exhibits and put things on display. It really runs the gamut of the Indigenous history, the contact era, and then up to more modern times.
We actually have a very large piece of the Charter Oak.
Yep.
Which one day I just happened upon in the archive, and I said, "Well, what's this?" And it's a very large piece of the Charter Oak. So, and you would, not knowing us, no one would ever guess that's hidden in our archives.
Yeah, definitely. So you also have a lot of material from South Windsor and the local area, but you have material from other places as well. Would you talk a little bit about that?
We have material from Ohio and some other places, further out west. But the majority of what we have, and those things are like projectile points, but the majority of what we have really is from this area in New England.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, functioning as a library and an archive, I guess I'm intrigued because I know that so many small institutions have these little collections all over the state, and I'm curious about the ways you kind of think about integrating them into your mission, into your the things that you do, your educational programs. I mean, I know you talked about them being good tools for education, but lots of times I think they just sit in boxes and they're kind of just hidden away in a lot of small places, but you really use them. So I don't know, you want to expand on that a little bit?
Sure. I make everyone at the museum very nervous because I like to, and I hear Carolyn laughing because to me, I tell her I'm going to go break them out of the case now. And so she says, "Oh," and I go upstairs and I unlock the cases where the artifacts are living, statically living, right? So picture Ode to a Grecian Urn, right? The poem, right? So what we want to do and what's really important to us is to take those artifacts out and let people touch them. So I take out the archaic mortar and pestle. And there's something really magical that happens with kids and adults too. When you take these things out, you let them touch something that's 9,000 years old plus. And they connect to archaeology in a way that you can't connect to it by just looking at things behind the glass. And so I bring things out into the village. We always have a rotating archaeological display there, and with the outreach programs, these are really, a few weeks ago I was in Enfield at a cultural fair with our educator team, and I brought out the mortar and pestle, and I had another archaic bowl that has a little chip of a garnet in it. So I was explaining to people and letting them touch these things, and grown-ups and kids alike just really, the knowledge comes alive. And they're fascinated, and they say, "Wow, doesn't this belong in a case?" And I said, "No, but you have to be really careful because I like my job and I want to keep it." So yeah, I'm notorious for breaking things out of their cases, letting people touch them, letting people see, somebody made this. Somebody made this 9,000 years ago, and here you are touching this. And here you are looking at something that looks like it in Williams and Sonoma. Right, with the mortar and pestle, right? So
I think what's neat about us too, and what Liz and Nowashe has done for our organization is it does remind us frequently that all of this historical material shouldn't just be put away and never seen, and not just brought out, for rotating exhibits every once in a while. Some of what we're working on right now is most of our archival collection is searchable online. We're in the process of moving that to Connecticut Archives Online and the Connecticut Digital Archive so that it's more accessible to people locally. But we're also going to be doing the same thing with our reference materials. So all of those archaeology books, all of the other reference materials going back, many of which are reprints where people can learn about the Indigenous history locally or the colonial era. We want those to be searchable and accessible to people as well to come and utilize. And then the other piece is that Liz has done a great job of purveying materials, educational materials, reproduction, some other, for Nowashe, that we want to have a catalog of all of that too. So, we can get to a point where people can look up a particular artifact that they might want to see. So that's leading all of that work. And, fortunately for us, we're not a huge institution. So making all of that accessible is a little bit easier for us than it might be for some very large institutions. So that's exciting, I think, too.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think that, I think there's a disconnect between the past and the present when we have things locked away in cases. It kind of otherizes it or makes it seem, fragile, delicate, untouchable, unknowable in some ways. So being able to take these things out, I think, provides a real tangible way for people to engage with the past and learn about it. So I think that's fantastic that you can do that. So I guess that's a good lead-in to talk about Nowashe Village.
Carolyn, do you want to start off with how Nowashe began, and then okay.
So as Liz mentioned, we have thousands of artifacts, and for decades, our organization, through really talented docents and local social studies teachers and an education director, developed programming around this, primarily for the South Windsor Public Schools. And kids came for decades to learn about that local history. And so in 2015, with an interest in expanding upon that, our board of directors wrote a grant, which we received from the Department of Economic and Community Development, a Good to Great grant. And that's what kicked off this extension of a wooded parcel behind Wood Library for Nowashe Village. The entire construction budget was about $100,000. It's on almost an acre of land, very densely wooded initially. And when you come, you experience a palisade fence in the way that Adrian Block did in 1614, very nearby where we're located today. And what I'm most proud of is more than a quarter of our construction and development expenses were paid directly to Indigenous people or tribal nations in New England. Our wigwam structures, our cedar benches were built by Indigenous people, and they helped define where we were going to put our learning spaces and how to build a Three Sisters garden. And so it's been a really worthwhile project. It was completed in 2020, but we delayed opening because of the pandemic. So now we're in year 3, and in only 2 years' time, we've had more than 4,000 visitors come through.
Wow.
It's been really busy. And, we could never have done Nowashe without Indigenous people guiding us. And they are the cornerstone of what we do. So not only do we have an Indigenous Educational Advisory Council, we had an oversight committee for the village, and the materials are really important. And when you look at the village, I look at the village now as being just in phase 1, really getting the structures up, which is, one open wigwam so people can kind of see the nuts and bolts, like the skeleton frame of it. And then one family wigwam, followed by what's called the sachem's house, which is really like that oval-shaped house that right. that could house two families or house a sachem and his or her family. And the really important thing is that the materials to build these wigwams were harvested from the Narragansett Reservation. So it's not only that we employed Indigenous people, but we got the materials from their land. And the symbolism of red cedar, the way that it was told to me by a member of the Narragansett tribe is that, the red cedar, the red in the cedar represents the blood of our people, the blood that has been spilled. And of course, cedar itself is such a beautiful wood and has so many wonderful qualities, being rot resistant, bug resistant. And so, the Indigenous people really have been at the forefront of this village. And, looking onward to phase 2, we have a wetland in the back, and I would like to see a walkway, like a boardwalk formed in that area so that children and adults and whoever comes can just go up close into that nature, into that space, and walk along. And then have an adjacent classroom next to it too.
So how did you get the idea to do it? I mean, you got your grant, but I mean, how did the idea form to build this kind of living history?
Okay, so what was out there before was just one, it was one very small wigwam. And so the idea, as Carolyn was saying, is really, we really wanted to advance our educational program so that the Friends not only offered programming to South Windsor, but that we offered programming to a lot more people. And in doing that, we really wanted to encapsulate, a little bit of like a slice of life, if you will, of what was going on in South Windsor, because we know from the archaeological record, there were so many people living in that region seasonally, right? And then in the winter, wintering over in East Hartford, in that region. And we wanted to recreate a slice of that life. And so hence the extra structures. And these structures also serve as classroom spaces. You'd be amazed. I fit 28 kids and their teachers in the family wigwam. And they did crafts, and all of them were very comfortable. So you would think that a wigwam wouldn't hold a lot of, activity, a lot of people, but in fact it does. And the same is for the Sachem's house as well. They're great places for education.
And I think to your question too, Sarah, as we embarked on this, and Liz came on as an employee in 2018, a volunteer educator for many years before that, and already came with experience. But when we started to really lay things out, we took inspiration from slightly natural clearings in the woods. Tried to imagine a space that could handle multiple classrooms at one time. And so one of the important things that I say now is that, it's not meant to be a replica. And we, in fact, do not use the term living history museum because that typically evokes a thought of docents in period dress or costume, if you will, and ported, directly into another time. And that's kind of important to us because as things evolved, we tell modern stories. We include present-day Native Americans. Nowashe's never open to the public without at least one Indigenous educator present. And so in looking at it in that way, too, you mentioned connecting the past to the present. I think that's what really became our goal, that we wanted to make these spaces, natural so that you're getting that environmental piece. Native people were so tied to their environment. That was so important to them. So there's that element. There's these gathering spaces, but then not just set in the past. So that's been a really neat piece that we've played with now over the years to try to figure out how to educate about the past, but then make those linkages to the present.
Hey, I got a question for you. As Sarah's getting rid of a dry mouth, can you give us an example of some of the questions you get? Give us the type of aha moments when the light bulb goes off, when the visitors are taking it in. What are they most curious about?
Gosh, they're curious about everything. I think the one thing. When I ask everyone questions, right? So one of my first questions is, where did everyone go shopping during the woodland period? And everyone looks at me. And I say, well, there wasn't any Walmart, couldn't go to Costco, Stop and Shop wasn't open. And so then they just look, and these are children and some are adults as well. And they just look, and I say, well, nature was your Walmart. This is where you got everything. And so that's a question, like, where did everything come from? The other questions that I get frequently are, what did they eat? Why did people live in round homes and not square homes or homes like we do today? And let's see, what else? Actually, frankly, a frequent question is, how many children did Indigenous people have? Because I think Western culture is pretty used to people having, like, British and Irish, Scottish, having like 6+ kids. But whereas the Native Americans, I think that the record shows that really it was only 1 or 2. And so that's another frequent question as well.
I think another piece that's really neat to see is how many Indigenous people have come to, or people who are novice archaeologists who once found, a point and they never knew that much about it. And so it's really neat. People just are fascinated, I think, because there's not, I kind of, as you were saying, Sarah, there's not a lot of interactive places, at least not when I was growing up, where you could see artifacts not behind glass. So to be able to ask all of those questions and then to overhear folks talking to each other and saying, oh, yes, I'm part, whatever, but I don't know much about that part of my heritage. I'd love to know more. And we have educators and then other guests who just strike up conversations about how to research that, how to learn more about the artifacts that they have or the history of the land that they live on. So that's really neat. And again, I think it's slowly pushed us more toward looking at those kind of social situations. We had an exhibit this past fall, for example, on murdered and missing Indigenous women, an art exhibit from a wonderful artist out of Western Mass. So just continuing to tie that past to the present. I had a really interesting conversation once with one of our educators who is passionate about his work of preserving his family's history. His father is Mashantucket Pequot and Narragansett, his mother, Mashpee Wampanoag. And I'm a child of immigrants. I have several different ancestors on both sides of my family that came through Ellis Island from Italy. And people have heard me tell the story about I didn't find out that I was part Sicilian until I was an adult, because in the Italian community in New Haven, I don't know, I think at the time that wasn't something that one half of the family liked to talk about. And so I think it's neat as Americans. She's laughing at me. Because
I am.
Yes. I think what's neat as Americans is there's so many people here who forgot about their history, came here and do not speak a native language anymore, that their grandparents or great-grandparents wanted to assimilate. And so it's neat to hear, no, I mean, these are people who their history goes back so much further, and they're very much want it to be appreciated and understood and preserved. So that's really neat. Just, you never know what kind of conversations are going to come up with staff, with educators, and then just with visitors of each other.
Yeah, we have a lot of people that come in. And, when you think about the indigenous people in the United States or in the Americas, I mean, these are victims of genocide and settler colonialism. And, of course, we still live in that post-colonial state. And so just trying to undo myths and really hear the voices of people who were here first is very important to us.
And I know that every time I've visited, there have been Indigenous people doing programming in Nowashe Village. So can you talk a little bit about some of the programs that you've had?
Sure. Excuse me. We've had an activist, educator, and actor, Anawan Whedon. He's been a frequent educator in Nowashe Village, and whether it's talking about wampum or dancing and drumming, or doing a theatrical performance, Anawan is truly an educator for the indigenous people, and he really connects so well with everyone. He can do a variety of things, and he'll be appearing at Nowashe 2 times this year. Everything will be on. It's on our calendar on our website, nowashe.org. And another guest that we've had several times is Chef Sherry Pocknet. And Sherry is a fabulous, renowned Indigenous chef. She has a restaurant, Sly Fox Den, in Charleston, Massachusetts. And Sherry was in Time Magazine this past November, which was exciting. She was able to be with us for Indigenous Peoples Day last year, and she'll be coming again this year. And she does food demonstrations. So she talks about the life ways of foods. So one of the things that Sherry had said in the past is when other girls her age had an easy bake oven and they were baking, little cakes or right? Sherry was cooking raccoon that she had from her freezer that her family had hunted. And so a totally different mindset. And then really she promotes eating with the seasons, not only eating locally, but eating with the seasons. Sherry's fantastic too. And the third group I want to mention that's coming back are the Horse Hill Singers. They were here last year, and they're coming back again for Indigenous Peoples Day. And it's a very large group of singers. The leaders are from the Mohegan Tribal Nation, and they opened up for Willie Nelson at Farm Aid in 2021. They're phenomenal. So we've been really blessed. We're really blessed to have the Indigenous community come over to us. And even though we're a small institution, and I know that other institutions can pay them more, I think they really believe in what we're doing. And that goes a long way.
Yeah. I was thinking about, education in kids and all these new initiatives for social studies learning in elementary schools. And I know my son's in the 3rd grade, and they're talking about Connecticut's Indigenous history this year and doing a trip to the Pequot Museum and all of that. So have you been getting increased interest from elementary schools and school groups because of these new educational initiatives?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I would call this like my non-busy type of year. So my non-busy type of year is now turned into my very busy type part of the year with just booking a lot of educational field trips in the village for schools, for homeschools. And what's really picked up is the outreach, because we do something called Nowashe on the Go. And so, I've done several schools, CREC schools, public schools, etc. And basically, I say, hey, kids, we're going to travel back 12,500 years in Connecticut and, show them the woolly mammoth and talk about that. And I was so excited to see the woolly mammoth the other week at UConn. Thank you. And then I travel back in time and, do an overall presentation with them. And then we do breakout groups. And during the breakout groups, guess what they get to do? They get to grind corn using a reproduction mortar and pestle from the woodland period. And they do a variety of hands-on activities. And then they get to explore our artifact table where, again, I take the things out of the case and they get to do a hands-on exploration. So, yes, it's getting very busy.
Bet. So, it sounds like you've been growing quite a bit since you've gotten established, and you've gotten a lot of recognition for the programming, which is fantastic. Can you both kind of toot your own horn a little bit and talk about some of that?
Carolyn, you want to do that?
Yeah. So we were honored in 2022 with an award of excellence from the Connecticut League of History Organizations, which is a fabulous group. And then I won't say even more excitingly because it's just excitingly. We were also recognized with an award of merit from the American Association of State and Local History, which is kind of the same organization, but at the national level. And among the 50 or so award winners nationwide, we were actually selected as one of 4 History in Progress awards. So that's something that they don't necessarily have a minimum number of people that they recognize on an annual basis, but less than 5% of the regular award winners are typically recognized as a History in Progress award. So we traveled to Buffalo last fall for our first national conference. Thankfully, it was only in Buffalo. And it was fabulous and just really neat for the recognition for our work, for Nowashe, but, for what we're doing. And we were also honored. We were the speakers at the national conference's small museum luncheon. And that was exciting, too, to be able to share how we did what we did. And so it's been great for us, but, I'm also excited to bring that recognition to the local Native story, to South Windsor, to the region, that there's wonderful things happening in Connecticut.
That's fantastic.
So with the Buffalo trip, when we did the luncheon, for the small museum luncheon, they had asked us, Carolyn, I'm going to tell the story. Are you getting ready? I'm going to tell it. So they asked us, well, how really can you be so successful when you don't have a large budget? And I said, have you ever seen The Wedding Singer? And they looked at me like, no. And so I said, well, you need to go watch that movie. I said, because when I first had called Anawan Whedon, who is really renowned, I mean, he's like internationally known, I thought, there's probably no way he's going to come. But at least I can say that I tried. Well, our budget, was pretty tight. And so I said, well, Anawan, have you ever seen The Wedding Singer? And he said, yeah. And I said, do you think I could pay you in meatballs on top of what we pay you with a check? And he paused, and I thought, oh, no, I've done it now. And then he said yes. And so one of the first times that it's true. It's a true story. And he said yes. And so I have my mother-in-law's Sicilian meatball recipe, right? And she lives in Sicily. So it's, that's, yeah. And so I made a pot of meatballs, and that's how we partially paid him. And for this year, I owe him a lasagna. He's coming again July 8th for our the Connecticut River Day. He'll be in the village. So anyway, and so the crowd at the museum at the Buffalo conference thought that was very interesting, and I saw them all writing down meatballs. Right.
One of the things that Liz has brought to light for me is this notion of these traditions within the Native community of gift giving, of trading, of appreciating heritage and all of its different facets. So we have fun. We have a really great time with all of our educators, and
That's fantastic. So, for my own selfish purposes, for our educational programs, I'm really curious about when you do programs for kids, for school kids, both either in the village or when you go to their schools, what types of things do you find that they really resonate with them the most? What are they the most excited about? What are they the most into? And what really grabs their attention?
There's so much that grabs their attention. When they walk into the village, they see the palisaded fence, and they said, well, what's this? What's this? And I said, well, it's palisaded fence. I said, do you have one? No. We have a white fence, or we have no fence. And I said, well, the indigenous people who lived here, they had to protect themselves. And so that's one thing. The other thing that they really do enjoy is learning about how different things in nature are used. For example, the black walnut tree. They're astounded that you could make an ink from the black walnut tree, and you can also use it for medicinal purposes. You have to really be very, very careful. And then, of course, how the walnut was a great source of protein. So I find that the kids seem to like most traveling back in time when you were fighting things the size of a school bus. So they know the size of a school bus. So if you say, you were fighting a woolly mammoth, you had to take something down this size, their eyes light up. And we've introduced atlatl throwing.
Oh, that's a big hit.
Whoa. Gary Nolf was our instructor. He was with us for the last season. We just introduced it. These kids, he brings with him a woolly mammoth and a saber-toothed tiger. You never saw kids more excited. They're out there putting their life into throwing that, And so that really makes it come alive too. I can't even say there's one thing. It's really, making a corn cake and cooking it along, on a rock on the side of the fire. They love that too. And they love the sachem's house. And I always joked, I said, where are the closets? And they look around like, did I miss a closet? And I said, no, just look under the bench you're sitting on. So it's a variety of things that reaches a variety of people. Yeah. But I would say the traveling back in time, they love that. And the spear throwing, absolute love. Yeah.
Yeah, we've had really good luck with bones, animal bones.
Oh, yeah.
A good deer skull or, just some limb bones. That's really grabs their attention.
Oh, yes. They love, yes. We have a lot of deer skulls. So we'll have a juvenile skull and an adult skull. And they, when you take the jaw apart and they love that and see the teeth. Oh, yeah. Love it. But kids are great, though. I mean, kids are alive. And you know what I see? I see grown-up people. You know how being an adult, it's kind of like Groundhog Day a lot. You just kind of do the same things, right? But when the adults come to the village too, I see people coming alive. I see people interested and intrigued, and I see their curiosity piqued. So it's great all around.
It's fantastic.
Are there any camps associated? Any summer camps?
Carolyn, you want to take that one?
Not yet. We would love to start to offer that. We've started some exploratory conversations. I think if anyone's listening in the greater South Windsor area, we would love to partner with an organization or a town parks and rec to offer that, because if we did it on our own, there's a lot of hoops to jump through.
We do have a volunteer camp that comes, and they come to help us to clean up the village, and they help me with the garden. We plant a garden every year after the first full moon of May, and so the camp is called the Rising Stars Camp. It's out of South Windsor, and those kids are terrific. It's middle schoolers and high schoolers, and they come. They can weed the garden, they help plant, they help trim things and keep the village looking great. And so we really appreciate those and other volunteers that come in and do those things.
Awesome. Do you integrate the wetland behind into your educational programming? So just thinking about all of the significance of wetlands and just the number of sites that are kind of centered on wetlands and what an important role that those resources played in Indigenous lifeways.
Right. The wetlands are huge. I mean, they're their own ecosystem right back there. The nice thing is that the wetlands in the back of Nowashe, we're always talking about them. The kids are looking out into them, and that's really why I want to build this boardwalk out there to get them really, front and center so they can see what's going on. So, we look at the skunk cabbage, and the nice thing is that although there were Phragmites kind of taking over, now the cattails are coming back. So when I do the woodland walk out there, we'll talk about cattails and how cattails are phenomenal. You can do so many things. You could eat them. You can make fluffy diapers out of them, right? And you can use them for all sorts of purposes. Flour, eat the roots, chop them up. And so we talk about, the wetlands are very important for the critters too. And I always say to kids, if you want to find artifacts, you should look for where water sources are, right? Like a river, a wetland, a stream, because where a water source is or where a wetland is, there also will be people, right? Or animals rather. And where there are animals, there will be people. So I'm really excited about the wetlands in the back, and I do try to incorporate that as much as I can with the kids, and hope to more, definitely.
Since you mentioned Oops, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, and Liz, you're planning a theme day in Nowashe this summer all about the Connecticut River.
I am, yeah. We have our canoe day going on, and it's really like exploring waterways. And so what we're going to do is we're going to have Jack Albano, who's the owner of the Metacom Canoe and Kayak down at the Vibbert Road Landing on July 8th. He's going to be taking people on mini tours of the Connecticut River in the South Windsor area. I think we need to reconnect with the river more in South Windsor. It's kind of like it's there, but no one really pays a lot of attention to it. So we'd like to do that. And with the Waterways program, I think that's going to help us connect not only to the river, but also really showcase, because by then we'll have our new outdoor classroom, the wetland classroom, really what's going on in the wetlands. And we do use a lot of QR codes out in the village just for the independent people that, would rather just take it at their own pace and keep to themselves. So there'll be QR codes as well explaining everything. So that should be a really fun day. I'm not a good canoeer, but I will be going.
Excellent.
So you did mention that, places to find artifacts are near waterhead. You ever considered, or did you do a dig in the area at all to see if you found anything?
I haven't done a dig in South Windsor, no. The only place is through FOSA at the Hollister site. Mm-hmm. But the Hollister site is near a river. So there, yes. But in South Windsor, no. But I would like to do a dig there someday.
Yeah,
yeah,
be fun.
Definitely.
Something to consider. FOSA would help.
Absolutely. Sign me up. I'd love to.
So, can we talk a little bit more about some of the upcoming programming that you have? I know you mentioned Canoe Day.
Yeah, we have, well, this is a first for us. We're doing a maple sugaring presentation. So it's very exciting. We have 2 members of the Nulhegan Abenaki Band coming in and to really educate people about the history of maple sugaring. And so they will be using a wooden trough and hot stones to cook the sap. And I was able to connect with someone who gave me 6 gallons of free sap last week because unfortunately Nowashe doesn't have any maple trees, so it's kind of tough, right, to do. Right. So we have these 2 people coming in, and which is very exciting, and we're going to learn really how to take sap. How did Indigenous people just take the sap from the trees and turn it into delicious maple syrup? And we're also going to be supporting the Indigenous economy when we do this, because we're going to have for sale maple syrup in little decorative leaf bottles from the Passamaquoddy tribal nation. So that's very exciting. And then we're giving out samples. And my family is going to be making 100 corn cakes. And they know that now.
Is this how they found out?
No, they found out a few days ago. But we do have people volunteering to cook corn cakes. And these corn cakes really, they're a variation of the journey cake. It's not going to be a journey cake like with walnuts and salmon and green onion. It's just going to be very, very plain so that people can enjoy that too. And I'm very much looking forward to that day. We're going to have storytelling inside. And there will also be a maple leaf pendant craft for people to do as well. And very exciting.
So if people are interested, how can they get involved with this day?
Oh, if they want to get involved, all they have to do is go to our website, nowashe.org. And you can look me up on there. Send me an email if you'd like to volunteer. Because we're always looking for people who are interested in Indigenous life to help. And I am expecting a very good turnout.
I don't think a lot of people understand. I mean, because people will go to Meg's Point maybe, or there's sugar shacks down in Madison, Bushy Hill. A lot of people are doing the maple syrup and the maple sugaring and teaching people, but they have sophisticated equipment, like thermometers and stuff like that. I mean, a lot of people don't understand that before there was this capability, people learned about this art form from the Indigenous peoples, and for them to be able to pull it off without a thermometer is pretty crazy.
We have no thermometers out in Nowashe. No, we just have a wooden trough, and we have these little pincers to pick up the hot boiling stones so we don't burn ourselves, so the guests don't burn themselves. Yeah, it's really the old school way of doing things. This is how things were done. Yeah. And so it takes you back. I love primitive technology. I mean, it's an oxymoron, I guess, but not really. It's fabulous. So yeah, we're going to be doing it just how it was done for thousands of years before we were even here.
Yeah.
So really looking forward to that event. And then we have our canoe day coming up. And then we'll have our September open house, and that will be with Chef Sherry. And so we'll be giving out some free samples of food and beverage. And also, she usually sets a tent up there where if you'd like to buy beverages or a meal, you can purchase whatever you'd like from her. And lots of times, we do have the Artifact Identification Day, June 10th. I don't know if you're able to join us, but you are welcome to just come and have fun, because we're going to have Dr. Bellantoni. Nick Bellantoni will be with us. Scott Brady will be with us. Nancy Nigerian will be with us. And we're going to have a cooking demonstration that day with Courtney Turner, who's Mashpee Wampanoag. and Micaiah Stasis will be also doing a wampum presentation. Gary will be there doing atlatl throwing, and he's going to do a bit of flint napping. So we've got a lot of great stuff going on for everybody. And there's always crafts too. I'm a big craft person, so yeah. So there's always crafts to do. I love beading, and there's always fun things.
Cool. And I guess I should say, in a shameless plug for the archaeological community, that last year we held the Archaeological Society of Connecticut meetings at the Wood Memorial Library, and it was a fantastic space for that. It was our triumphant return after COVID to in-person meetings, and we had a great crowd, and everybody was really excited to see the village and to see the collections and the exhibits. And we're going to do it again this year. This May, we're going to be back.
That is so awesome. We loved having you guys there. It was great. I love the presenters. I can't wait for this year. Can't wait. And you guys brought a lot of donuts. I've never seen more donuts.
I think we overdid it on the donuts.
You had more donuts than I've ever seen in one
Definitely a food thread throughout this whole program.
Can you tell? Yeah, we're pretty much all foodies over there. So.
We had wine and cheese in the afternoon too, so it was really just a whole day of food.
It was
food and archaeology.
Yes, it was great. We're so happy to have you guys back.
Hey, Carolyn, any final thoughts?
No, I think Liz covered a lot. She's such an asset. We're so lucky to have her. And thank you to all of you. It's been great getting to know Sarah a bit, and just everyone associated with the state office has been very, very good to us for many, many years. So thank you.
Oh.
Yes, thank you so much for everything.
Very welcome. We're happy to be involved in all of your programming and everything that you do.
Thanks.
We got 2 minutes left. Can we just go around the table and make sure our listeners know where to find, follow, and all those social platforms, etc.? Where should people go?
People can follow us on Facebook, Nowashe. It's Nowashe Village. Our website, nowashe.org. And we are the Friends of Wood Memorial Library and Museum. I'm Liz Glaviano. I work as the Education Director. And all my information's online.
And and the Nowashe site will also link to our main organization site of Wood Memorial Library. That's woodmemoriallibrary.org, where we have all sorts of other cultural programming all year long. So we hope to see everyone.
And you can get to FOSA at fosa-ct.org, and we're always looking for new members and volunteers, and check out our website.
Sarah, you got the last 60 seconds. What's going on? Where are you putting your hands in the dirt tomorrow?
Tomorrow I'm not going anywhere, but I have been updating the OSA website, which is long overdue, so bear with me, but there's new things there under our recent projects. I'm going to be adding to that over the next couple of weeks. In May and June, we'll be back out at the Hollister site. We're hoping to do another couple days at the Two Wrestling Cat site in East Haddam this summer. And we're looking at a new site in Hebron. So we have a lot on the table and probably more things to come. So follow us at osa.uconn.edu and on Facebook.
Guys, thanks so much for being part of ICRV Radio. A lot of fun. Thank you.